From A&E Studios in New York with Peter Graves.
She was the ultimate sex symbol, the most glamorous, famous movie star of her time, perhaps of all time. Marilyn Monroe. The name itself symbolizes Hollywood. The dream of becoming a star, loved and adored by all. That's just what it was for Marilyn, a dream. For as she discovered, no amount of fame could give her the personal happiness she wanted more than anything else. Biography presents the life of Marilyn Monroe.
I can't understand, and I despise all that rubbish that makes always, if there isn't a tragedy, then there isn't a star. No, the tragedy comes all right, and it is sad because what they weren't trained to do, none of these people, including Marilyn, was how to handle it. But who can handle the whole world at your foot? Who? When suddenly everybody's there bowing before you and wanting you. Who has yet learned this art anyway, really, even today? Clark Gable, simply by, well, being a man and not saying anything. But most people don't know how to deal with it. Such affection, you just, how many ways can you say, grazie, grazie militante, thank you, and the audience just stands up and loves you for half an hour because that's what you mean to them. You mean love. That's what makes a Monroe, and she's the last great movie star you see, Hollywood movie star. Hollywood movie star with lights, Hollywood movie stars with all the photographs that the stills men take because we need new pinups, everything. She's the last. She's the end of what we mean when we say Hollywood, and that's it.
Present to you the Look Achievement Award as the most outstanding feminine newcomer of 1952.
Thank you, Louis.
And as Best Young Box Office Personality, Miss Marilyn Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
And it's with honor and pride and pleasure I present this citation to you.
Thank you.
It's hard to explain Marilyn Monroe because you cannot explain Niagara Falls or Grand Canyon. You just sit back and admire and awe.
Marilyn Monroe was one of the most beautiful girls I've ever seen in my life. She was sweet, she was kind, and she was naive.
Lee Strasberg once said, when he was interviewed about Marilyn Monroe, that Marilyn Monroe was a dream of Marilyn Monroe. And I've always been intrigued by that statement and what he might have meant by that.
A lot of creative people, I guess, are very powerful in that they almost create their own realities. And it seemed to me, and I remember we had a conversation about it once where she talked about how when she was a little girl, she had dreamt that she would be rich and famous and everybody would love her and that would make the big difference in her life. But she left herself out of her dreams. So everybody loved her but her.
She was born nothing. She was born an orphan, a county orphan, foster homes, didn't finish high school, and married a young guy because the foster parents were leaving town and they thought they should get married, and they got married. Then he went off to the Merchant Marine and she had the war games and worked in a war factory.
Marilyn Monroe was about 19 years old when I think she started to begin to find this focus for her life and began to think seriously about acting. It's a story that's well known about a photographer going into a factory during the Second World War, trying to find a young, pretty girl and to take pictures of her for the magazines that were sent to servicemen across the seas during the war.
I was having a fashion show at the Ebell Club on Wilshire Boulevard. And I had told Marilyn that she could be in the show, and we had a station wagon to take the group over to the club. And in the meantime, Marilyn came over to me and said, you know, I've only got these sneakers, and the dresses she selected in the wardrobe calls for better shoes. I can't wear these sneakers. And I called the wardrobe and asked them if they'd please give her a pair of shoes, or at least lend them to her. And she said, well, she'll have to sign for them, but tell her to come up. When we got to this Ebell Club, the man that was managing this for me said, who's that last girl that came in with you? And I told him Marilyn Monroe. She's new at Columbia. So he said, oh, well, we didn't need her because she doesn't have any, has she worked before in pictures? And I said, no. So he says, well, we'll manage to put her in the second row.
I think actors are attracted to acting because it gives them a sense of an opportunity really to explore other roles. But I think if you're Marilyn Monroe and you feel some lack in your development, in the way that you've grown up, in your own family history as being a kind of mystery to you, I think acting has special kinds of attractions.
This is the first car I ever owned. I call her Cynthia. She's going to have the best care a car ever had. Put Royal Triton in Cynthia's little tummy.
Right, lady.
Cynthia will just love that Royal Triton.
She had made herself a name for herself by, in a very small part, in Asphalt Jungle at MGM, and then her contract had been taken up again by Fox.
Haven't you bothered me enough, you big banana head? Just try breaking my door, and Mr. Emmerich will throw you out of the house.
You know, one of the greatest gifts that I ever received was to know Marilyn Monroe, and I knew her well. In fact, I did her clothes for 11 different films in Hollywood. This girl was so beautiful, so terribly beautiful that not even any woman has been able to copy her. Marilyn was a combination of a baby and a grown, sensuous woman, and that's what made people fall in love with her.
When we started the picture in Niagara, she was wonderful. She worked hard, and she knew everything. Then she asked for a weekend to go to New York, and Mr. Hathaway said, of course, you go. Because she was in love with this, baseball player, Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio.
Take me in your arms and make my life perfection.
Anyway, we came back from Niagara, and there was a party, and we invited her, and she didn't have any clothes, naturally. So Mr. Hathaway said, you'll have the red dress and the shoes and everything that you had in Niagara. She was thrilled. We took her to the party, and she was a smash, really a smash.
Our biography of Marilyn Monroe will continue on A&E. Our biography of Marilyn Monroe continues here on A&E.
When I first was doing Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, there was the big musical number called Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And the idea then was the studio making the sexiest, most exciting, almost naked lady on the screen. So I started off and I did a costume for Marilyn, which this is front and back view of the wardrobe still. And the costume was fishnet hose over her nude body. The breasts and the hip line was covered with diamonds, put together by a jeweler. And just as we're ready to shoot the number, good Lord, the thing goes wrong. Marilyn Monroe's nude calendar hits the market. The studio went wild. And then I got a call, throw the costume out, we've got to dress her. We might lose all the box office with the film. So I made a very covered dress, a very famous pink dress with a big bow in back.
I've heard of affairs that are strictly platonic, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. And I think affairs that you must keep Masonic are better bets. If little pets get big baguettes, or short, or tall, or young, or old, as long as the guy's a millionaire.
And after the picture called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, I went to see her with a script. It was the first CinemaScope picture, and it was actually the picture which did sold CinemaScope to the industry. And she came the next day to see me. She started the conversation by saying simple, she did not like her part. And I said, well, have you read the script? She says, of course I read the script. What's wrong about the part? He says, well, I don't understand my part. When finally we had the picture, the opening of the picture, the crowd was so excited about this talent that policeman has to carry her up like this. 4 men carry her up to come into the theater. And I've never seen those things happening again.
Marilyn, this is your first appearance in television, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Jack.
Well, I'm quite flattered that you made your first appearance on my show. I really am. You know, I made a picture once. The horn blows at midnight. And I believe if that had been made in CinemaScope, it would have been a huge success.
Well, you know, CinemaScope is very complicated. In order to put the big screen in all the theaters, they have to take out a lot of seats.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my picture, they could have taken out all of the seats.
She walked down Fifth Avenue once with me and met Mrs. Bodney, who owned the Algonquin Hotel, and they were talking. And she said, Marilyn, August, the hottest day of the year, you're wearing a mink coat. She says, Joe D gave it to me. I mean, D is Joe DiMaggio. Isn't it wonderful? She said, but it's so hot. She said, don't worry. She flashed the coat open. There she was in the nude.
I'll never forget the time when they were doing the blowing of the skirt scene. She was on a subway grating, and they had these wind machines underneath. And the idea was they had come out of a cinema, and she stops and the wind blows up her skirt. Her husband at that time was Joe DiMaggio, and he was standing on the side with a columnist, Walter Winchell. And Billy Wilder was directing the scene. It was late at night, about midnight, and there was a huge crowd out there watching. And Billy, for some reason, kept having that scene shot over and over again. And every time he did it, the crowd, which was mainly consisting of men, started to cheer and scream and say more. And for some reason, Joe became a little uptight on it. He was a little upset. And he just turned to Walter Winchell and he said, I've had it. He walked away.
And it was her birthday, June 1st. That was also the birthday of my daughter, young teenager. She said, I'd like to take Edie to the circus.
He brought me down to her hotel room, and she got ready to go. And we went to the circus, and I was very shy. And it was very hard for me to talk to her. And I guess she acted shy, too. And she was just very sweet and very gentle with me. And we went to the circus, and she said if anyone would recognize her, then there would be a big mob around us, so that I shouldn't call her Marilyn. And if I had to address her, to call her, hey you, or hey there, or haystack.
I had a nephew at that time who was about 5 or 6 years old, Todd Allen, and he found out he lived in Springfield, Illinois, and he was very excited because he found out that I knew Marilyn Monroe. We were friends. He said, oh, please get me an autographed picture of her. So I asked Marilyn, would she autograph a picture for Todd? She said, of course. She was a very sweet and loving person, and loved children. So he said to Todd, I'll always wait for you. Signed, Marilyn. And he has it today. I'm sorry about that.
But then Marilyn, a few days later when they finished the shooting in New York, she flew back to California. And of course that blowing of the skirt was the end of that marriage. Just a short while after that, Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn announced that they were getting divorced.
This is what we would say with the conflict of careers. Good morning, Marilyn. What's the picture? What picture are you working on now?
Now she entered a phase of fighting the studio, fighting for better scripts, choice of director, choice of story, maybe more money. And it was a tough battle. A battle she eventually won, but in the end she lost the war, as they say.
It's not that I object to doing musicals or comedies. In fact, I rather enjoy it. But I would like to do also dramatic parts, too. submitted a list of directors you would work with? We only know the rumors are here, you know. I would rather say that I have director approval, and that is true. This you think is important? Yes, it is. Very important to me. You're wearing a high-hat dress now. The last time I saw you wear it. Is this a blue Marilyn or blue Star? No, I'm the same person, but it's a different suit.
In Bus Stop, she played this girl, innocent, but a sex. She'd drive anyone crazy who came near her. And Marilyn had that magnetic power. Every man thought, poor girl, I will take care of her. I will, she needs help. She's exposed to the evils in the world, and I will be the one to save her.
Our biography of Marilyn Monroe will continue on A&E. By 1956, Marilyn was tired of being typecast as the dumb blonde. She wanted to grow as an actress, and so she moved to New York and enrolled at the famous Actors Studio. She also fell in love with playwright Arthur Miller, but as hard as she tried, she couldn't escape the personal demons that haunted her.
What time is it anyway?
Oh, it's after 9 o'clock. I've been up for hours.
9? I didn't even get to bed till 5.
5? Oh, no wonder you're so pale and white.
It was amazing because Marilyn had the most beautiful skin in the world. She had skin like a little baby's. It was so clear and so smooth, not a wrinkle on her face or on her body. It was one of the most perfect skins and one of the most perfect faces and bodies I've ever seen. Josh Logan wanted 2 great big head close-ups, just Marilyn and my head during the kiss. And the cinema photographer said, no, you can't do that, Josh, because this is CinemaScope. So you can't do it, too big on the screen. So Josh said, I don't care, as long as you can keep them in focus, I want just Marilyn and Don, that's all, just tight on their faces like that. So he set up the shot, and we got ready to do it. Marilyn came in, we came together for the kiss, and the cinema photographer said, no, that's no good. You're cutting off the top of Don's head. And Marilyn looked up and said, but the audience knows he has a top to his head. It's been established.
And I think that right in the middle of her career, around the bus stop period in 1956, when she comes to New York and to the Actors Studio, this is an attempt to find out more about herself. And the way that she'll find out more about herself is not simply by taking these acting lessons or exploring the method, but it's also by meeting other kinds of people, meeting and actually marrying the playwright Arthur Miller.
Could you tell us what kind of a wedding you're going to have?
Very quiet, I hope.
Do you feel certain at this time that you will be able to get away to go to England?
I feel certain I'm going to try awfully hard.
In the event that you are not able to go, will Miss Monroe still go?
Oh, sure. She's got to go. She's got a contract to go.
Well, that means you may not have a honeymoon together then.
I think we will.
I hope so.
Later on, when she and Arthur married, or before they got married, Arthur was called before the Un-American Committee. It was the height of Joe McCarthy period. Here she was, not committed to anything, and she appeared in Washington with Miller.
How long have you been here, Miss Monroe?
Since the beginning of the trial.
Just staying in the house here?
That's right.
Has the trial upset your personal life to any degree, Miss Monroe?
I would like to say that I'm fully confident that in the end my husband will win this case.
Michelangelo said something years when he first started to paint. He said, "Dear Lord, free me of myself so I can please you." And to me, what that means is that he knew that his higher self, his better self, the part of him that created, when it was blocked by the neurosis, the craziness, the kind of petty everyday life, can't function. And I think that Marilyn was aware that she had this other side, and I think that's why she came to New York. I think that's why she came to my father.
And she was fun to be with. She was lively and always humorous, wonderful way about her. And when I'd do a scene at the Actors Studio, I remember her coming up and she'd say, "Oh, it must be wonderful to be an actor such as you are," and she'd give me a kiss, and I would think, "It's great." So I had a great appreciation of her.
Along comes something, some like it hot. The whole world adores it, even though those photographs you see of Marilyn, that's another woman because Marilyn was pregnant, and so it's another woman, and then they put Marilyn's head on top of this woman.
Billy Wilder gave her a good script to deal with. Her own character was really a supporting role. It was not the major role in the film, and although the lines were pretty good, it's all in the pacing, the timing, the rhythm, the kind of melancholy that she was able to put in a part which is essentially comic, to balance those two kinds of things. This is where we begin to see really the technique of an actress coming to play.
Baby, I'm through with love.
Movies made her. And if you look at the movies and you see her up there, this is not an unhappy person. This is a gloriously fantastic movie star. What more do you want?
My name is Lolita. And, I'm not supposed to play with boys.
And I think as she felt more in command of herself as an actress, at the same time, she saw how much there was to do as an actress, and she wanted more control over that. She wanted better contracts with her studio, 20th Century Fox. She wanted a way to control her own career.
Wait a minute. Oh, wow. Okay. Why so close? Would you like to appear in a play written by Mr. Miller?
I'd like to work up to that someday, possibly. Is he writing anything for you yet? No, not really. He's working on something, but no.
So we arrived in Reno, Nevada, and began working on this movie, The Misfits. Now, Marilyn was going to tackle a serious role in this movie. And people would sneer because they thought she was just this sex symbol. And the shooting was not easy. It was difficult. Marilyn's marriage was coming apart at that time. She had had a movie just before in which she'd had a relationship, I think, with, what's his name? Yves Montand. And I don't know if it's true or not true, but anyway, the marriage was on the rocks.
We better get you home, girl.
You were worried about me. How sweet.
Just want to keep you all in one pretty piece.
Will you have a spare tire?
Somebody's got to drive her.
Go ahead, I'll take the truck.
Don't be so keen on
Our biography of Marilyn Monroe will continue on A&E. Our biography of Marilyn Monroe continues here on A&E.
Paula Strasberg called me from Reno and asked me if I could meet them at the Burbank airport, small airport, and that she and Lee and Marilyn were coming down, and that Marilyn was going to a clinic. And she was very upset, Marilyn was. What had happened, I saw it before, the weekend before. Someone, a doctor here, and I'm not sure who it was, I would use his name, put her on to a sleeping pill that was habit-forming drugs. And she couldn't renew it in the prescription in Reno. And therefore, she went through all the withdrawal pains, bad pains in her neck and her back and her shoulders and so on. Horrible. And she couldn't sleep. She never was able to sleep. And she went, we drove her down to this clinic in them, and they'd cut down misfits.
She thought she was worldly because she had been around for a long time, had been a big star, and had been photographed by millions of people. But the truth is, she didn't know about the world at all. She was always naive to the last moment.
I mean, Marilyn Monroe is the biggest female star in the whole world, but she isn't in a movie. And then she's betrayed. She feels it. She feels that she's been used by everybody because she realizes that the Strasbergs haven't given her a movie. She realizes that being with the Sinatra crowd and all those, they may encourage her, but in the end, it's not a movie. She meets the president. She has an affair with him, we find out. At least she's happy.
This lovely lady is not only promptitudinous, but punctual. Mr. President, Marilyn Monroe. But I'll give her an introduction anyway, Mr. President, because in the history of show business, perhaps there has been no one female who meant so much, who has done more. Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe.
Retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet...
He thought people loved her. Not true. Not true.
It was exactly June 1st. That was her birthday. And when I arrived there, she was surprised to see me. She says, "What are you doing here?" I says, "I came out to wish you a happy birthday." And George Cougar, who was directing the film, Something's Got to Give, said, "Well, I guess that's it for the day." And the crew rolled out a beautiful birthday cake for Marilyn. It said, "Happy birthday, Marilyn." Well, as we all know, that weekend on the radio, the news came that Marilyn was sick. And Monday morning, the announcement on the radio said that she was not going to work. Her doctor had called in and said that she couldn't come in. The studio became very upset. They started giving out announcements to the press that Marilyn was not really sick. She was just playing sick. She didn't want to do this film. And they said that she was putting hundreds of people out of work. And they threatened to sue her for millions of dollars that they claimed they were losing on this film.
I've always felt that the more you can become truly yourself, the better an actor someone becomes. And Marilyn, in a way, was in the process of becoming herself, who she really was without the neurosis, without all the childhood hang-ups, without the habits, you know, the terrible habits, without that kind of enchanting but prison. This, for her, I think, all of that kind of Hollywood, that was almost like a prison. And behind those prison bars was much more. It's like a Pandora's box.
And I recall the time where she, it was getting dark practically, very little light. And she was on the sand there. The beach was practically deserted. And I gave her this blanket to cover her legs with, try to keep warm. And she was freezing. And she said to me, George, she says, I'm really frozen. And I said, Marilyn, I only have one film left in the camera. Let me just make that one picture of you. And let's call it a day, and we'll start again tomorrow. And she says, okay. And she puckered up her lips as if she's ready to throw me a kiss, and she said, George, this is just for you. And it was a beautiful picture. Unfortunately, it was the last picture I ever took of Marilyn.
Marilyn called us from California the night before she died. It was a very strange call. She was very high. She was very excited. Something was up, but we didn't know what it was. She was very enthusiastic. She seemed to want to say that her visit would be a sort of a reunion because we hadn't seen her for many months, and it would be a perfect time to catch up on gossip, etc. And, you know, the phone ended that way. This, as if we were talking about the weather and just personal ambitions, things we always talked about, and that ended it. And, of course, the next morning at breakfast, as everybody in the country must have heard by then, was the news on the radio that Marilyn Monroe had committed suicide. For Marilyn Monroe, alive at the window, we who spread the rainbow under glass and weigh the most elusive sky and air, of that clan I come to track your heart, but I'm baffled by those loose strands of hair. You stand, finger at your lips, lost in a long abandoned heaven. No one within, the angels gone, and all the harps undone. What legend draws you there? Oh, hurry down. Surely your home's with us, and not the gods. Below your window, as you watch, a river barge goes by. Someone waves. You laugh and throw a kiss for him to catch. You are not to be rescued wholly in this world. It must be so. As many who are saved, that many drown. I see you clinging to rooms, to phones, forgotten to be loved.
Our biography of Marilyn Monroe will continue on A&E. Our biography of Marilyn Monroe continues here on A&E.
I get letters, it's amazing, the other day from a 17-year-old boy in Australia He says, I wasn't even born when you took these pictures of Marilyn. I would have given anything, he says, to have known her and to have lived in those times. And it's amazing how people feel this way. I get letters from France, from Italy, Germany, Australia, South Africa. And they're mostly, amazingly, from young people and from people that do remember Marilyn and her age group. And Marilyn, you have really set this world on fire. We all love you and we miss you very much, but you'll always be in our heart.
I have a wonderful, heartwarming memory of Marilyn Monroe, the one and only time I ever met her. I was a young actor in New York, just beginning. It was the summer of 1959. Then one night, word came backstage that Marilyn Monroe was in the audience. After the show, all the actors were getting out of their makeup and changing. I was just an extra, and I was in a tent with the other extra men in the back of the theater when we heard this voice, familiar voice, Marilyn Monroe, from outside the tent, ask if she could come in. She was gorgeous, of course, and exuded sex also. Blonde, alabaster skin, almost no makeup, maybe a little eye makeup. She wore a white dress, low cut, and very tight-fitting, no jewelry, white shoes, and she was carrying a white raincoat. And the image was just all white and pure and gorgeous and sincere and humble, and your heart went out to her. You just wanted to embrace her. She seemed like a little lost girl. We walked to the parking lot, and there was a little hill you had to climb in order to get to the parking lot. And there we saw Marilyn Monroe at the top of the hill, waiting all alone. I turned around for a last look, and that was my last image of her, standing there on the hill, all in white, waiting.
Next week, Marilyn Monroe would have celebrated her 70th birthday. Marilyn, a senior citizen, it's almost impossible to imagine. Instead, she's frozen in time, eternally beautiful and ageless.